In the Talmud, the collection of rabbis talking about what other rabbis said, that other rabbis said, that other rabbis said, and on through the generations, there's a story about Reb Zusia. Reb Zusia, a righteous rabbi, it said, lay dying. He lay dying and he was surrounded by his students, his disciples who loved him very much. And they were astounded to see their beloved sage, their beloved teacher, lying on his deathbed, terrified. He shook with fear, it said, at the prospect of death and judgment. And the disciple said, Master, why do you fear God's judgment? You have lived a life with the faith of Abraham. You have been as nurturing as Rachel. You have feared the divine as Moses himself. Why would you fear judgment? And Zusia took a deep, shuddering breath. So when I come before the throne of judgment, I don't fear that the Almighty will ask, why were you not more like Abraham? After all, I could say, oh God, you know best of all that I am Zusia, not Abraham. How then should I have been more like Abraham? And if God should ask, why were you not more caring like Rachel? I can respond, O Master of the universe, you made me to be Zusia, not Rachel. And if the true judge should say, Zusia, why were you not more like Moses? I can respond, O mysterious one, who am I, Zusia, that I should be like Moses? But I tremble in terror, because I think the Eternal will ask me another question. I believe I will be asked, Zusia, why were you not more like Zusia? And when I am asked this, how shall I respond? Marcus, why were you not more like Marcus? Jean, why were you not more like Jean? Michelle, why weren't you more like Michelle? There's a river flowing in my soul. It's telling me I'm somebody, but who are you? Who are you in this January, this time of the year when our culture plunges into its rituals of malevolent self-betterment? Have you made New Year's resolutions? I read a study, the most widely reported study I could find, that said about half of American adults make New Year's resolutions, and then of those half that make them, about 8% keep them. 8%. Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to offer a bit of scriptural reassurance. Growing up Unitarian, I didn't learn much about Jesus besides the beginning and the end of the story that we make a big fuss over. And I figure as long as we're doing that at Christmas and Easter, we should maybe talk about the guy once in a while in between. So when I imagined the Sermon on the Mount growing up, I imagined it like a sermon on a mount, on the donkey, because I knew Jesus rode the donkey. And so I thought he would be giving the sermon while he was riding on the mount. Turns out it's a different mount. It comes at a part in the story when Jesus is starting to get a bit of a reputation. He's getting a following. People are excited about the message that he's preaching. The rabble have been roused, and he has had his time in the wilderness. He's started his career as this itinerant preacher, and then he started performing miracles. He's healing the sick, and that, of course, gets a lot of attention. But then the story takes to what my ears is kind of an unexpected twist. Instead of basking in the love of the crowds, feeding off their excitement and building the momentum with his 5-year strategic plan, Jesus gets overwhelmed. He decides, instead of spending time with these admiring crowds, to take a break. He retreats and goes for a hike on the mountain with just his closest disciples, his closest friends. Gives them this Sermon on the Mount, not in front of a big crowd, but privately on the mountaintop. And of course it begins with the Beatitudes. You might know about more of this story than I did growing up. But then he gets around to some other topics, and here's one of them. He says, "You've heard that it was said of those ancient times, 'You shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord.'" And this is part of his whole project of kind of rewriting Jewish law, which gets him in some trouble. "But I say to you, do not swear at all. Either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is God's footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black." Don't swear at all. Don't make vows, don't make promises, because you cannot make one hair white or black. And that's why whenever anyone asks me if I am making New Year's resolutions, I can confidently tell them, Jesus told me I don't have to. But really what's happening in the historical context is that he's poking fun at that cultural trope, and we've still got it, of making extravagant sounding oaths to try and convince people to trust you. I swear by God and heaven and earth and on my mother's name and here on this holy hilltop of the East Bay, etc., etc. You know the gag, right? When we make New Year's resolutions in this way, I think a lot of folks do, make them performative like this. We make them not because we're going to keep them, and maybe not even because we plan to, but in order to proclaim to everyone around, yes, I know I'm not there yet. I know I'm not good enough. Yes, I know I'm overweight, and this is the time of year when I acknowledge and promise to change it. Yes, I know I'd be healthier if I got more exercise. I'll change it. I know I'd be more well-informed if I read more. I'll change it. I know I'll be more responsible if I did something different with my finances. I'll change it. I know I'd be a better person if. And you know it to be so here before you and all our friends at the dawning of the year 2024 of our Lord, I hereby swear. Jesus concludes that bit by simply saying, let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Don't mask your words in performative vows, because while masks can free us and allow us to become bigger and maybe inhabit parts of ourselves, as we experimented a little bit with at the beginning of the service, that we don't always inhabit, masks, performances can also make us smaller, can confine us. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Let it be simple. I believe that we're in, and I'm not going to talk a lot about this today, but I think it's an important thing that we have a conversation about. We're in an epistemological crisis. Do you know what I'm talking about? Probably not. I'm talking about the way in which our foundation of knowing what is true as a collective entity, as a society, has been deeply shaken. And this is not the first time this has happened in history, but we're living through such a moment when the common cultural sources of a trustworthy epistemology, that is, how we know what we know, are no longer commonly shared. And because of this, we are living in this dance of masks. I remember when Donald Trump was elected in 2016, we started hearing the words post-truth as a common phrase in our lexicon. This is that dance of masks that can be so hard to discern our truth in the face of, that can be so hard to find our epistemological ground, what we stand on in the face of this cultural shaking. And there's a part of it that's really good news, because that old common understanding, I never watched him myself, but I understand there was this time when everybody felt like Walter Cronkite was, this trustworthy source of how things were. But it also came, of course, with a cultural hegemony, a singular white male point of view that was the epistemological grounding. And so disrupting that is an opportunity. It's a blessing, and yet it also is a challenge. Where do we find our own epistemological ground? Where do we find our rooting into truth? And of course, we know it's going to be more important than ever this year to come. I keep thinking about this, reading the news about Claudine Gay and the saga that's forced her out of her position at Harvard. We are losing a common thread of epistemology. The lifelong Unitarian and then Universalist poet and writer May Sarton says, "Now I become myself. Now I become myself. It's taken time, many years and places. I have been dissolved and shaken, worn other people's faces." And I wonder, have you worn other people's faces? Sometimes I feel like I have a whole collection of faces, other people's or my own masks. The good son, the responsible partner, the dramatic actor, the dutiful student, the cunning game player. You haven't seen that one much here yet. The tragic poet, the annoyed big brother, the skillful teacher, the playful friend, the sarcastic know-it-all. You seen that one yet? I don't know. Oh, not to mention the grumpier parts, the hopeless, despairing parts. We are all made up of these many faces, these many parts, right? And in some ways, what we're coming to realize is that this idea that we are individuals, that each of us is an intact individual, is a myth. We are not separable from the relationships that we are created within. This will be what we're talking about through this series of worship service about masks. We're not separable from the relationships that we are cultivated, created within, and we're also not individuals as much as dividuals made up of many parts that sometimes can and sometimes can't relate to each other so well. And the practice of integrity, of integration, which I think is also the practice that's going to find us that epistemological ground to stand on, is to understand and accept, to welcome in, say yes to all of these parts. I think Jesus' instruction to forget about all the big oaths and resolutions, to let your yes simply be yes, your no simply be no. It's about the practice of intentionally, simply being you. And it's also an invitation to go a step deeper than all these faces, all these masks, all these selves. It's to listen for that essential self, that core, that soul that we were talking about in Parker Palmer's language last month, what William Ellery Channing would call your likeness to God, or what the Buddhists would name as Buddha nature. To know what one is rooted in is one of the touchstones for finding our way through this epistemological crisis. Later in that poem, she writes, my work, my love, my time, my face. She's claiming this sense of self gathered into one intense gesture of growing like a plant. And I just love the idea of seeing our intentions, our selves growing like a plant as a counterbalance to that forced march of malevolent self-betterment. So I wonder if you need to make a resolution or an intention for the year, if they might be more like wedding vows to yourself. What if we were to make wedding vows to ourselves? Now, your spouse might also wish you would lose 15 pounds and quit smoking, but that would never show up in the wedding vows. Because of their covenantal and not contractual, they're these high aspirations for ourselves and our relationship. They're not what we're sure we can deliver on, but what we longingly hope for and are working to become. Vows, true and real vows, are a form of intention that is a promise to continue becoming, to continue growing like a plant. Make resolutions not because you will live up to them, but because you wish to give voice and shape to your becoming. This is the process of saying yes, not to cultural impositions, not to the shoulds of resolutions that we would make to fit into an external mold, but yes to the deep calling of our own being, the seed planted within us before we ever existed, the longing to become fully you. So, a poem to end with by Kaylin Hott. It's God Says Yes. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do just exactly what you want to. Thanks, God, I said, and is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God says. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is, yes, yes, yes. May it be so, and amen.